What's up, everybody? Jaron Fritz, aka Frizzy Visuals. I'm the creative director for Colorado State Athletics with multiple years of professional sports design and photography experience. And today I'm going to break down how I created this action sequence using 6 photos that I took with just a camera and a little bit of Photoshop magic. Sequence photography. What is it? A quick Google search yields a wide range of results for both snowboarding and skateboarding. However, we're interested in balls. Most basketball sequence photography results feature studio and stage shots with a tripod, leaving very few examples of in-game action. So let's figure out how to do what others don't. It's quite simple actually. You just need an action sequence with multiple photos taken from roughly the same angle and framing. This will do just fine. The first step is figuring out what photos you want to use. My camera shoots 10 frames per second, but no matter how many frames you have, just pick a few that best move the story you're trying to tell forward. For example, I have 15 images in this action sequence, however, I only plan on using 6 of them. Step 2 is to throw those images into Photoshop. If you don't have Photoshop, be a man, or download GIMP. That's what I started out on. Once you have your images placed into Photoshop, we need to try to align them best that we can. Since we aren't set up on a tripod, there will be natural motion and jitters, especially when you are tracking action like the example we are using today. When aligning these photos, you need a good starting place, and in most cases, choosing the middle shot of the lot provides you the most flexibility on both ends and captures the widest expanse of the background. Now that we've locked in our main background, it's time to wrangle the other frames into submission. We want to select all the images while only worrying about the middle one. Make sure it's centered and aligned so other images can all fit. Since the basketball hoop is a pillar that appears on all 6 of the images, this is a good reference to make sure that we are aligned and centered across the board. I went ahead and duplicated the middle image, then masked out the hoop entirely. I isolated this part of the image so I could use the hoop as my anchor. From there, I lined up the other 5 pictures to match the alignment and orientation of the cutout hoop. Now that all your images are seemingly in place, before we dive any further, make sure to turn all these layers into smart objects. Smart objects are the key to my happiness. It essentially just makes a layer protected and editable. With a smart object, you can double click to work with that isolated layer as if it's a new Photoshop document. Now here, we really start to make some headway. We're going to click into each individual smart object and perform a rough cutout mask. This is a little sneak peek to the end and what we are doing, but for now, it's just good to get a sense of how this will end up looking. If it looks trashed, you might have to interchange some images. However, just as I'm going along, you can see on screen that this is all about to work out. And if executed correctly, your sequence at the end of all the rough cuts should look something like this. This is a great start. However, there's still some work that needs to be done. We have the images bunched up and hidden on the right side, and I think there needs to be some tweaking done when it comes to sizing. So first things first, I centered up that image while bringing over the 5th. I want them all to feel evenly spaced out with not a ton of overlap. I also really like the last frame of Neek yelling and celebration, so I increased the sizing to make it seem as if he's closer to me and stand out a little bit more. The last thing to do for this portion is to handle alignment and sizing. Select all the images, rotate and position them as needed, and adjust their scale until everything looks well balanced and properly centered. Since we use that middle image as a reference point, you're going to want to copy that and paste that layer. Drag it to the bottom of your document and rename it to background. Open the smart object and delete the layer mask. Save it, then click back into the original document. As you can see, it's starting to come together and we are almost done. However, one big step lies ahead, and that is to click into each of these individual smart objects and mask the player out as precisely as you can. You can do this in various ways. I'm weird, so I use the polygonal lasso tool instead of the pen for my masks. However you need to get it done, just get it done. This might take a while, so I suggest diving into my entire video catalog, liking and commenting on all of them if you're looking to kill some time. Or if my voice is killing off your brain cells at too fast of a rate, I have rewatched Breaking Bad 3 separate times on my phone in this last year alone while designing. Whatever fits your fancy. So now that your fingers are bleeding from masking out 6 images and your ears are fuming from the constant tone of my voice ringing throughout your head, you should have a cool looking board that looks like this. This is great if you don't want a background image, however we are aiming for a simple photo sequence, so we have to do some work for our background layer. Hop into the background smart object and see if there are any weird or overlapping images. The only two images I see happen to be a random Fresno State player along with a referee. We'll utilize generative fill AI to remove them from the background. When doing this, don't forget about their shadows on the reflective floor. Once you bounce back into the original document, it's starting to look even better. However, there's one more step until you embark into your action sequence mastery. Just like when we removed the Fresno State player and the ref, we also had to remove their shadows. So it would only make sense if Neek had similar shadows. For the cuts that touch the floor, more notably the first, fifth, and sixth images, we somehow have to bring that back. In order to accomplish this, you will need to duplicate those layers one by one, completely mask them out, then get a low opacity brush to start to shade back in for the shadows. This will be just under their feet on the new layer masks you created, aiming for a realistic shadow. This step will be completely based off feeling and vibes. You just want to make sure there is some presence of shadow and reflection on the floor. Since all the images are relatively in the same place as the background image, the colors should all be alike. Alright, to reflect, you photographed an action sequence, pick the ones you want to use, threw them into Photoshop, align them with a pillar object, made sure you like the framing, cut out all the players, prettied up the background image, and then added back in some of the shadows? Well, my friend, you have just completed your first basketball photography sequence. Not only does a good action sequence look cool from a photography perspective, but they also work great for graphics. Previewing ahead to next week's D1 Photographer episode, I use an action sequence from that game to create this graphic. Like and subscribe for future content. Drop a comment down what you'd like to see next. Until next time.